What is up, beautiful people? Thank you ever so much for joining us here today. We're going to be talking about discovery techniques to close indecisive prospects. We're going to break down what buying looks like today, where sales is going wrong, why we're losing so many sales to indecision, what we can do differently, the questions we can ask our buyers to move them away from whatever they're doing today, so ultimately we can win more sales. I just want to say a big thank you before we jump in to our partners. Without these partners, Sell Better Show just wouldn't be possible. So today, we're being sponsored by ZoomInfo and Sybil. Here's a stat for you. Did you know that salespeople spend about 70% of their time not selling? That means they're building lists, they're doing admin, they're updating their CRM more than they're actually talking to their customers. That's why these two tools are really awesome today. Keenan, glad you were able to join us, my friend.
Yes, baby. I had to shut everything down. I don't know what happened, man.
I'm glad to have you on here today. I want to ask, who here has read this book I'm holding right now? You heard of it, Keenan?
No, I'm trying to click no, but it won't let me.
Yeah. As a presenter, you're not allowed to participate in the polls, otherwise you could influence the results, mate. That would be bias. But a few years ago, I picked up that book and it actually changed my perspective on sales massively, which is why I'm super excited to have you on the Sell Better Show today and talk about these things. And I want to start off with, where are things at today? So you wrote Gap Selling, I think, in 2019, am I right?
Basically, like December 15th of 2018. So yeah, so just say 2019. That puts us at almost 6 years old.
It's older than my son. I wanted to see, since then, how much have things changed in terms of what it's like to buy and what it's like to sell?
How to buy and sell hasn't changed. Like, that's consistent. We've just been circling the wagon for a long time. I think a couple of things. I think selling is all screwed up. And selling is all screwed up for a couple of reasons. One is there was a period here, and my old ass, thinks things are a lot longer than they are. But for about 7 or 8 years, with all this emphasis on tools, and like outreach and sales loft and why can't I think of all the other ones? All the tools that we're using to try to drive sales, there has been a complete lack of commitment to selling skill sets and selling capabilities. And we really weren't raising up a generation of sellers who knew how to sell. They were sort of brought up on how to leverage tools in a selling process. But the fundamental approach to selling has been sort of put on the back burner. And now we're seeing the effects of that. And then secondly, because of that, buyers are fed up. So buyers don't see value in salespeople anymore. They just don't see the value in them. They don't see them bringing any value to their business. So they're fed up with them. They just take my order and leave me alone. They're not bringing any value to the equation. So what you have is you have product-centric buyers compared with product-centric sellers, and everything is just around the product. And no one's really providing any insight or value on how to actually solve problems and help.
How does that look in practice, example-wise? You say you got product-centric sellers, product-centric buyers. What do those two things mean?
So let me make it really clear and simple for everybody, because I'm passionate about this and have been for a while. And we meet companies all over the world like, oh yeah, we're problem-centric. And oh yeah, we're doing this. Oh yeah, we're implementing gap selling on our own. And no, you're fucking not. You're just not. So the way I would describe it is this. I'm going to get out of sales for 1 second. I actually was with a customer this morning and just crystallized it for them. The way I want everybody to imagine, you go into the doctor, you feel something is wrong, and you think, I need to go see the doctor. Okay, so I'm not even picking a broken arm. You know it's broken, but you're not feeling right. And after a week or 2 weeks or a fucking month, I don't care. You're like, I got to go see a doctor. Something's not fucking right. You have one of two choices. Doctor A is, oh, okay, so you're saying you're not feeling right. You feel you might have, cancer. You feel you might have indigestion. I don't care. So yeah, let's go. You think you really have really bad indigestion. Great. Let me tell you what I got. So I have this indigestion medicine. Take it 3 times a day. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. It'll make you feel great. It only costs this much. So go home and have a great time. Oh, awesome. Great. That's what I want. But hey, I need indigestion medicine. So I got indigestion medicine. Great. So here's your indigestion medicine. Go the fuck home. How do we know it's indigestion? How do we know when it started, why it's happening? How do we know it's not pancreatic cancer? How do we know it's not GERD? How do we know it's not a problem with your gallbladder? We don't have a fucking clue. The other doctor, however, says, all right, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. I've been having these pains. Exactly where are the pains in this particular area? How long have you been having them? About 2 or 3 months now. Have you changed your diet? No. How bad is the pain? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's 7. What was it 2 months ago? It's actually a 4. Oh, so it's getting worse. Is it 7 all day long? No, it's only right after 8. Oh, right after you eat. Tell me more about that. So during the day when you're not eating these things, is it this? No, it's not. So they ask all of these questions to understand. And then like, you know what? I want to take a little blood and I'd like to take an x-ray or a CAT scan. I want to see these things. Blood comes back. These things are messed up. CAT scan shows no signs of cancer. It's like, all right, you know what I think it is? I think it's this. I think it's caused by this. So based on that, I'm going to recommend this. We don't do that in sales. And what sales is about is solving fucking problems. A business is trying to do their job. And all of a sudden they realize my job is not as good as it could be because I have a problem. Sales is supposed to help them solve that problem. Instead, sales says, I got an indigestion pill. Great. We want an indigestion pill. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. And I got a stat for you that'll blow your mind. 50% of buyers said they have bought the wrong fucking thing. 50%.
And that's a symptom of the fact that we aren't diagnosing up front.
Not even a symptom, it's the problem. Because we're not diagnosing up front. Because they're going in as product-centric buyers because they're so fed up. And because salespeople don't have a freaking clue half the time. They just want to push the product. They all just agree I need an indigestion. And the worst part of it is every once in a while, they actually had pancreatic cancer and they died.
They missed it.
They missed it.
I think this is a really helpful metaphor just to really put this into context. First doctor, by the way, is getting done for malpractice for the first thing, which is kind of what you're describing. People buying the wrong thing, churning early, and massive churn issues in software. But if you don't understand, the buyer thinks they know what they need sometimes, especially for inbound leads, right? They think they know what they need. Like you said, someone has a headache, they come to the doctor to get some painkiller prescriptions. You can either give them the painkiller prescriptions that they're asking for, but that might not solve the root cause of what's giving them the headache in the first place, because what you didn't do is ask the questions that could have uncovered the fact that they actually have some very, serious illness within them. Or vice versa as well. You can't just assume the worst things happening. They might just have a little mild headache, and you wouldn't prescribe, chemo to someone who has a migraine because they didn't drink enough water.
Exactly.
So this goes both ways. And it's not to say that buyers don't know what they don't know. It's just that it's our job to help them get there as well. I'm curious, how does this look in practice for a seller? A buyer comes to them. Today, we've already kind of been over it. They're just giving out the product. They're giving them what they want. They're saying, you want this, we have this. How does that look in a sales process itself?
So if a buyer comes and says, look, I want your software. Okay.
Let's make a real example. Sell Better sells sponsorships. Can we work with that?
Yeah, I guess we can work with that. Sponsorships to who?
Companies in the sales tech space, marketing, sales technology, and service companies.
So Sell Better has a big network of people or a lot of eyeballs.
We got a fair few of them on the call today. That's right.
Okay, so you got a lot of eyeballs, and you're going to sell that market. All right, so I come to you and say, hey, I want to buy an ad, or I want to do some advertising with you. Oh, great. Here, I can take your order. I can say, wait, stop. Tell me, everybody take it out. The only question you should ask on an inbound. Only question you should ask on inbound the very first time someone says, I want something. Fantastic. Tell me, what prompted you to call, or what prompted you to want or feel you need advertising?
And I say, we are not getting as many click-throughs on our ads anymore, so we're exploring new revenue generation opportunities.
So beautiful. I love that answer. To me, that's a softball answer because you've already told me the problem.
We were having ads. No one's clicking on them anymore, so we're looking at a few different sponsorship opportunities to figure out if there's something there. We want to do a few tests.
Okay. Even when you said no one's clicking on it, I love this because you keep telling me there's a problem. Sometimes people will say, we just wanted to explore, or we just felt we needed new advertising. Sometimes they won't tell you the problem. They'll just say, we just wanted to explore new options, or we just wanted to expand our marketing budget. So they don't even tell you.
Let's pretend I said that.
Yeah. All right. So I say, fantastic. So understanding that you're thinking you want more. What's behind that thinking? Are you not getting the leads you want today? My assumption is that if you're reaching out, there's something you're looking to achieve. Could you share that with me?
Yeah, we ran a test sponsorship with another media company, and it went pretty well. So now it feels like we should probably try to find more places where that might work for us.
Okay, when you said it went pretty well, what do you mean by it went pretty well?
When we looked at it afterwards, we were able to generate 6 sales qualified opportunities out of it at a much lower rate than we normally do. It didn't happen immediately, but over the past 3 months, we been monitoring it, and we saw that was an attribution source for us.
All right. So when you talk about what you normally do, then what I'm hearing is you're probably not concerned. You're not at where you should be from a lead generation perspective from the investment you're making into leads.
Yeah, I would say that's untrue. I think the issue can sometimes be that we generate enough leads, but the conversion rate on those isn't quite where it needs to be. So then we have to generate more than we would otherwise need if they were converting at a better rate.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing is not necessarily a number of leads issue, it's a conversion issue. Could you walk me through what your conversions are today?
Yeah, so typically from a MQL, which meets all of our qualified criteria, right person, right type of company, through to a sales accepted lead, which is an SQL, that would be percent.
30%. So from an MQL to a sales accepted. And roughly how many leads in a quarter or a month or a year are you talking about?
We have a sales team of 10 and we need to try and get them at least 20 SKOs a month. So right now we're probably putting across 1,000 leads a month to the sales team.
1,000 MQLs a month.
1,000 MQLs a month.
And that 1,000 is turning into
300 SQOs
across 10 people. That's 30, but I thought you said you wanted 20. Sounds like you're doing pretty well.
We're doing okay, but we have a very transactional sized product and our overheads are quite high. So we need to be selling a lot more than that. Our sales cycle on average is about 2 days. So
Okay.
they need a few more than 20. They've tried self-sourcing themselves, but that's not really our business. We're the marketing team.
Okay. So you're getting 30 now. If I did the math, or did we do this backwards?
I got the number wrong because I'm making up as I go along, but yeah,
Okay.
30.
But I like that you did that because you see what I did here? A lot of people talk about discovery and people get discovery fatigue but I'm doing discovery, but the customer doesn't like it. But did you notice what I was doing here? I was paying very damn close attention to every word you said. To the point when the math didn't math, I went back into, wait a minute, you said you only needed 20, but based on what I've heard, you made 30. So let's dig into that. If you don't think that happens in real life, you're kidding yourself. So what then starts happening is they start to realize they don't really have a grip on this at all. I mean, we could keep going if you'd like, but what I would have done there is I would have started unraveling this piece and said, oh, wait, you got it wrong. Let's step back a second. And I'd say, look, what I really want to understand is where you are. Then I want to understand the transactional piece. When you say transactional, it's a day or two. How much is that average sale? What's happening there? You see what I'm doing? I'm going through this whole fucking thing and I'm doing it in my mind. I am listening, cranking, listening, cranking, listening, cranking. And I will get you to a place where you are like, oh shit. Okay, I get it now. And then I'll be like, okay, I see where you're trying to go. And this is where I believe we can help.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few things there. Number one, discovery fatigue. And I think this is where a lot of sellers get their mind in what I would call, they put their heads in the wrong space with it.
Yep.
Discovery fatigue. They feel bad about asking questions of buyers.
Yep.
Why is that? And what should they do instead?
Two things. One, they feel bad asking buyers questions because either they don't believe in their product or they don't believe in the space they're working on. Or two, they don't really understand it. So if someone comes to me and says, a good friend comes to me and says, hey, Keenan, you know what? I'm thinking about breaking up with my girlfriend. I'm thinking about getting divorced. I care. Like I instantly, just saying that gives me the chills. Like I care. So I'm like, so they'll say, what do you think I should do? I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? I need to understand what's going on. Do you see what I'm saying? I am not going to say, give my fucking opinion at all, which is your product, the solution, until I understand what's going on. So I'm asking and listening. And so I am very connected to that person and the problems they perceive they have. Now, if it's someone I don't care about or I'm not connected to, like I was at a bar last night having dinner and this guy sat next to me and I don't know why he did, but he just started chatting away. Like one of those guys. I'm like, yeah. And if he asked me a question like that, hey, you know what? Look, man, I'd ask him a high level question. So how long have you been married? And what is about her? And then I'd ask these disjointed high level questions. Sounds to me, she's fucked. And then you send them on their way. So it's because you're not connected to the buyer and the set of problems they have that your mind is not actually listening to understand. You're just asking questions to make the sale. You're just asking, can I get a piece of information here and here that I can jump on and start pitching?
So you keep saying problems. How are we meant to know what problems our buyers are facing? And what are we striving towards with these questions?
You're striving to find a problem, just like the doctor. What is the problem? Is the problem indigestion? Is it cancer? Is it blood issues? Okay, let me step back, everybody. This is what sales is that no one has done a good job in 65 years or 70 years telling you what sales is. Sales is, when done correctly, a problem-solving exercise. Let me be as clear as possible. An individual and or a business says, hey, where I'm at right now is not working for me. Say I'm a small contractor and I've got a bunch of pickup trucks. And let's say I'm a small landscaper and I got a bunch of pickup trucks and all my tools go in the back, the lawnmower's back. And as I've been around, I've built a good fucking clientele and someone's asked me to do some heavy shit like railroad ties. And now I need to move, or I'm finding myself more and more often having to move large amounts of dirt that I cannot do in my pickup truck. So I have a problem. I can't scale my business. Why? Because I can't take on certain clients. Why? Because I have pickup trucks, not a dump truck. So I think I need a dump truck. So the salesperson's job here is to figure out what the best truck is, how big is his business, what's the best way to finance it, what type of truck will meet his requirements. Does he need one that tips up and dumps? Is the other way of getting it in it? Does he need a tailgate that goes up or down? Not because I want to sell that shit, but I'm trying to figure out what the absolute, unequivocal, beyond a shadow of a doubt, best solution is for his problem. That's sales. So when we go into sales and we're trying to sell something, if you don't know the problems that your product or service solves, if you don't know the root causes of those problems, and you don't know the impacts those problems have on an organization before you start selling, you can't sell. You can only order take.
Okay, this is making a ton of sense. You cannot sell the solution without fully understanding the problem. You mentioned three things there: the problem, the root cause, and the impact. I want to understand what those three things mean, because that sounds like what we need to uncover very early on when we're having conversations with new buyers. So the problem, what's going wrong? What do you mean by root cause?
So root cause is what's causing the problem. It's why does the problem exist? So let's keep jumping back and forth from that doctor example, right?
Yeah.
If I find out that you have GERD, which is gastro reflux, some shit, right? It's when it goes up into your throat, right?
Yeah.
In order for the doctor to fix that or better understand, it's why is it happening? Is it the food you're eating? Is it you're overweight? Is it something with your stomach? Is it not placed in the right way? Is there damage to the stomach? Do you see what I'm saying? The doctor's ability for her to understand what's causing it plays a massive role in solving it. What people don't understand is when you find the problem in a sale, you can't solve that problem. You can only solve the root causes to the problem. Mm-hmm. And so if you find the problem, but you can't figure out what the root causes are, you are left sort of out in the wind. And one of the root causes to low quarter attainment and long sales cycles is a shitty product. That's one of the root causes, right?
Yeah.
We don't solve that one here at ASG. I can't fix your product. So when we're going through the discovery process and we find out you have 2 or 3 of these problems, we go right to the discovery to find out why. And if the product is shit, we're like, look, we love you guys, but knowing you're doing a rewrite and you're doing all this stuff, we advise you don't buy us until the product is done, because we can't solve that. We can't solve that root cause, which then will make your problem go away. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if the root cause was they were doing a piss poor job of discovery or finding a need before they came in and pitched a solution, that's where you can say I can, and being able to prove that you can solve, that's when you might come in and present a solution, but not until you know that. You also spoke about impact. What's that all about? Why does that matter?
Impact is where the motivation to buy exists.
Okay.
Right? I can have a problem and I know it's a problem, but if the impact isn't enough to get me to move, it's not untenable or intolerable, I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything. So a perfect example, great example of this is we work with a company, one of my clients, this is many years ago, and most of their clients were like Fortune 10, Fortune 20, mining companies, oil and gas, et cetera, I think it's upstream or downstream, whatever it is. So the refineries all the way up to whatever, right? And they did something called maintenance, reliability maintenance, maintaining all their equipment. The reason you did that is because if you didn't properly do it, it created downtime. So they found with one of their clients, because of unplanned downtime, they were losing between $300 and $400 million a year. And so we were like, holy shit, there's a huge gap. And I wasn't on any of these calls, but I was doing the deal reviews. And I'm like, okay, you guys got a good gap. This is huge. And then it wouldn't close. And finally, I asked my favorite question, why have they not bought? Because everything's there. The gap is huge. And finally, what we came to, or I asked the question because I didn't know it at the time, I said, how big is this company? And I think they were like $75 billion. I said, there's your problem. The impact of losing $325 million a year, although I'm sure that little group would like to fix it, in the big picture of things, it's not a big enough impact. So until they could show a bigger downstream impact, it's going to be hard to get them to move right now. So that's where impact is, the motivation to buy. You can have impacts, but you got to understand how big they are in order for someone to want to solve the problem.
What if there isn't a problem or the impact isn't very big? Someone says, yeah, I just want to do better.
They won't buy.
So what do we do?
There's no such thing as someone who wants to do just better. You have to define it. So what people don't understand, this is what I love about this, but it's also I get passionate about gap selling and why we have such a problem, because people aren't aware enough to accept these things. Nobody just says, I just want to get better and buy. Now, if it's, I just want to get better and it's only going to cost me $50 in a couple hours, all right, great, I'll give it a shot. But if they just want to get better, the next thing they're going to ask is, what's the cost of that better? So when you say, I don't really have a big problem, I just want to get better, could you please define better? And if it's only this big, I'm like, okay, so you just want to lose a few pounds. But if I'm going to tell you it's going to cost you to go to the gym 4 days a week and you have to change your diet for 2 pounds, you're like, oh, fuck it, I don't want to do that. So they're not going to buy. This is what you got, not you, but this is what we all miss, is that if without a big enough impact, if it's not untenable, intolerable, they are not going to change unless the cost of change is so fucking small, they don't give a shit.
This is something that I've seen tons, and I want to move on to the process and how teams can start changing this and building this into their process and making sure this happens less frequently and measure whether it's going wrong. But selling better is what I did for many years, and it is just numbers and getting lucky. When I started looking for those problems, that's where things started working. I'll give you an example, right? You know Pac-Man? You see my arcade machine back there?
Yeah, of course.
Bit of a nerd. The Pac-Man game, anyone who's old enough to remember, I guess.
I was there when it came out, Slick. Just remember.
Yeah, I could tell, Keenan. Don't worry, all right? I've already sized you up. The game of Pac-Man, you have to go collect all the pills, right? But you're being chased by ghosts. But the goal is to collect all the pills and you can move on to the next level. If you're selling cherries and you start talking about how the cherry is going to get Pac-Man more points and it's going to play a cool jingle when you pick it up and Pac-Man's going to start flashing and you're going to be able to eat ghosts, that's all great, but it doesn't matter unless there is an existing problem with the way that Pac-Man's trying to play the game today. In that sense, hey, are the ghosts getting you and are you losing all 3 lives? That's the impact, and having to restart the entire game again. That's like selling that. It's got the sounds. No, without Pac-Man doesn't need a cherry. Pac-Man will be just fine without it, and therefore it's not worth selling to Pac-Man, and it's worth having an honest conversation to say, hey, doesn't seem like you need this. Have I missed something?
Well put.
What would you say to that? Anything I missed?
No, I think you nailed it. My favorite part of you is that without these 3 ghosts, Pac-Man doesn't need the cherry. Like that was, I couldn't say it any.
All right. So why hasn't this changed? You wrote the book in 2018, 2019. It's been out for 6 years now. It's 6 years old. It's your baby. It's available to people. Why aren't people doing it? And what should they start doing to implement some things that are actually going to help them avoid no decision, avoid selling to the wrong root cause, or selling to people who haven't uncovered an impact, or are prescribing the wrong medication to people? What should sales teams be doing?
You want to answer why they haven't do it?
8 questions in a row.
Yeah, I know. Which one?
Why haven't they yet?
Okay. So that's a complex question. I'm going to do something I don't do very well, and I'm going to try to be brief on this. I'm just going to tell you the reasons, and then if you want to ask more questions, you can. I think the first reason and the most disheartening reason is they think they are. The second one is the culture of sales. This type of selling by many is perceived. It is not, but it is perceived is taking too long and not in the best interest of the company, because there's a fear, like if you find a problem and they don't have a problem, we've got to get rid of it. And the idea is just push, right? Like just push the product. So today's culture of get deals at all costs, and the fact that they think they're doing it. And then thirdly, those who even think they're doing it lack the infrastructure, support, and coaching to make sure it's being done. So those are your 3 reasons.
Those are my root causes for the problem of not doing this. If you have a question, folks, please use the Q&A. And I have a quick poll that I wanted to ask before we get into a little bit deeper into this. What is your role in sales or otherwise? Because the next question I want to ask you then is who's to blame for that? Because obviously a lot of the people like myself, as a seller, when I picked up the book and started thinking about problems, it got better for me. But for 3 years, I had a manager who I wish had a shaken it, but maybe it was on me. I should have picked it up sooner and should have realized what was wrong, but I didn't know what I didn't know until I had an interview and they said, our favorite sales book is Gap Selling. So then I was like, oh yeah, I've read that. I lied. And then I had to go rush read it. And I was like, oh, that makes tons of sense. So where does this start?
I think first it starts with an acceptance that you're not doing it. This is I feel my relationship with the sales world is like a real relationship. I have to accept certain things and, you know what I'm saying, and have to learn to go slow in other ways. I really feel like I'm married to the sales world. But the first one is, as it relates to gap selling, okay? Most people think they do it. They don't even realize or understand what it really is. So an example is I was doing a speaking engagement back in the beginning of the year, and a lot of people kept saying, oh yeah, I've been doing gap selling. I read your book. I do it. It's awesome. So I asked one simple question. I said, who does gap selling or has been practicing? And all these hands went up. And I said, okay, you and AE? He said, yes. I said, okay, what's the most important opportunity in your pipeline? And he listed off some company. I said, great. I said, okay, so tell me, why do they have to buy? And he said, because they don't have an XYZ, blah, 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 they don't have this. I'm like, no, that is not what they have. Why do they have to buy? And he gave me another high-level dumb answer. And I said, listen, let me tell you what I'm looking for. The answer should be, if you're an actual gap seller, is they have to buy because, everybody watch what I do here. Everybody take this back to your own CRM and look at all the deals that are important to you. And if you can't say this, you're fucked. Currently, they are experiencing or struggling with or challenged with, and I can't remember what his thing was, but I'm going to make shit up. They're losing $2.5 million per month because insert root cause, right? In addition, because of that, they're unable to expand in new markets, or they're seeing attrition increase by 22%. Their cost of rehires is this, that's an additional $2 million. And you're just listing all of the shit show that is going on in the organization. And so therefore, if they do not buy our XYZ product and fix these things, in the next 6 months, they will not be able to get their stock price too wide. They will not be able to enter these markets, which they said they want to do. They're at risk of losing market share, etc. That's the fucking answer. That's the gap selling fucking answer. And let me tell you right now, I don't care. This is why I'm not the biggest sales training company in the world, because what I'm about to say, because it pisses people off. They don't like my personality. But leadership owns this piece. Leadership does nothing to ensure that this type of information is captured in the CRM, in deal reviews, looks the rep in the eye and says, explain to me, why should they buy? And look for that information. And so no one's getting it. If no one's getting it, then no one's learning to get it. They're going to default as quickly as possible to, let me show you my product. You don't have a mouse, you need a mouse. End of discussion. That is gap selling at its finest. And here with my salespeople, we go through this every day. And when I see it, if I don't think it's enough, I'm like, all right, that's decent enough, but I'm not convinced that's enough to get them to spend the money. I need to know this and this.
Change of buying tech or services, coming to even a half-day workshop with you, Keenan. They're taking their tail team off the floor for half their day. So they're losing a ton of productivity to do that. They got to plan it. They got to pay for you. They've got to bring you out. If there isn't a big enough problem that makes them want to do that, they're not going to do it.
Nope.
So again, to repeat what you said, because I love that so much, look at your deals. As a manager, look at your sales team's deals. If you're a rep, send this to your manager right now and look at the deals and say, why will they buy? And the answer should start with, because if they don't...
Currently they're doing this. Currently, and you have to describe the... Okay. And I don't want to interrupt you, but I really want this to sink in because you missed it. Just like the doctor, why do they need chemo now? Currently, they have a stage 3 tumor that is 2 millimeters wide. It's sitting a centimeter away. Let's put on the pancreas, sitting a millimeter away from the liver. It is, I don't know this. And I list all this other stuff. Oh, they've had it for this long. Their blood work looks like this. So this is where I am today. If we don't do this, within 3 months, it will metastasize to the liver. Once it metastasizes to the liver, the chances of survival drop from 70% to 6%. Do you see what I'm doing? You wanted to start with, if we don't do this, it goes from 70. No, you can't start there. You have to start here because that's the credibility. This is the believable piece. This is where you are. And if you don't, yes, that's why this will happen. You have to start with currently today.
I was going to say, if they don't, they will continue to, but I'll give you a pass on that one, mate. I have a couple of questions here, and there's another piece that I know you want to leave off on, but I want to address some questions here, because one said here, there's a fair few ICs in the audience. We saw the answers there. About half people in the room are account executives or closers otherwise. There was a mix of SDRs and leaders and the rest of the other 50%.
Wait, I'm sorry.
There's a mix of people in the room, but around half people in this room are actual closers, account executives, people closing the deals. Someone's hearing this right now going, this makes total sense. I've read this book, or I'm going to read this book. It's amazing. Their managers don't support the approach or aren't familiar with it. How can a seller get around that if their leaders saying do things this way, which we've just established might be the wrong way?
If anybody could give me an example after I say this, I'm completely open to it. But I haven't run into a situation where a manager is against this. They may not support it, but it'd be really hard for a manager to be against this. So you just give the manager whatever he or she wants, but you yourself know that I'm not going to advance a deal past certain stages until first I've completely got the entire current state and I've defined the current state. I need to define it, right? Now, the way we define it is there are 5 elements. What is the physical and literal, which is all the facts? What is the problem? What is the impact? what is the root cause. So here someone said, I saw them say it's similar to spin. It is in the fact that it talks about situation implications, but what we do is we break it down about 8 more layers. Take a look at how spin talks about situation. They don't differentiate between problem, impact, and root cause. They blend them all together. I run the risk of the doctor selling to the root cause without actually getting to the problem and the impact. And if you can't separate those and see that flow, you end up where we started this whole webinar on. So yes, you as an individual can go get the future state, which is the new physical and literal, the problem solved, the desired outcomes, which is the opposite of the impact, the desired outcomes. So that's different than implications. And then the emotions, and then the potential solutions, which go across the root causes. So go get all of that. And if the manager doesn't support you, so what? Like, you can do this without a manager. You don't need a manager to support it or not support it. And there's very little more that a manager is going to ask you for that you wouldn't get anyways, like decision criteria, buying process, champion. You can get those and add this to it, and you're good.
We were a little bit late to start, Keenan. I want to respect for anyone who we can stay on for 5 minutes extra to make up for it. But I also wanted to share what you kind of ahead of time. You said that you got the speed model. Talk me through it.
Yes.
What's this? Why would people care about this?
Okay, so I love that you asked this because I'm passionate about this, and I saw someone who came out with the speed model. So we learned after a while that we would train all these organizations. They'd love it to death, and then we come back later, and although they would have seen results and they were super happy, I was like, you guys are like using half of this. It's you give someone a really sweet like home entertainment system that's all Wi-Fi enabled and do all this shit, and then you go in and they're like using 2 features. You know what I'm saying? And they love it.
Netflix, and that's it.
Yeah, they love it. They go, this is so awesome. But I'm like, did you know you can create a grocery list? And then when you get to the store, it'll automatically pop the, I didn't know that, or I forgot how to use it. So what we realized is that people were using Gap, but they were not getting the most out of it. So I sat down, I said, okay, what's going on in sales organizations that is preventing us from improving win rates, and what is preventing us from getting quota, and what's preventing all the problems from a organizational perspective, not from a skill set perspective. And what I came up with was this, that sales organizations have not recognized that there are 3 distinct layers within their sales org. And that if you don't address all 3 layers from an operational perspective, you will not maximize any of your enablement efforts. So the idea was how sales enablement can prove their efforts. So those 3 layers are the skills layer. Sales enablement has been crushing this, but because they didn't recognize the other 2 layers, they weren't getting the output they wanted. So the first layer is the skills layer. That's where all the training comes involved. That's where your methodologies sit. That's where your qualification criteria sits. It's all of the knowledge and skills and development of the people. But just like in a sports organization, it's not enough to sit there and teach them all. You have to then take all that to game time. And so the next layer, what we call is the opportunity layer, and that's where you have to actually watch, provide feedback, engage, create processes, embed tools that see and test how the team is actually doing this in real time against real clients, and then measure the results in real time against real clients. Not just, oh, Tommy had a good call with XYZ on Gong, and that was it. And we never actually were able to tie that call to a close rate. We weren't able to tie them together. The opportunity layer teaches you how to do that, tie the skills to the results. And then the final one is the forecasting layer. How are we driving what we call bid information, the buyer input data, through the whole process and taking it all the way up to the forecast layer so that you can actually increase the predictability of your forecast? Because believe it or not, your skills layer impacts the forecasting layer. But if you haven't pulled that all the way up through the forecasting layer through what we call bid data, you're screwed. So that's the high level. It takes all of that and drives it bottom up and top down.
So what's this? This QR code that's on the screen, it takes people to the resources page on your website with this speed model broken down. What's in it? Is that what you just described?
Yes, it's what it is, how to implement it, why it matters, and then it links you to an assessment that allows you to assess your organization on 115-point criteria based on each level. So you can assess your skills layer level, you can assess your opportunity layer level, and then you can assess your forecasting layer, and you can assess them all independently and see where you sit from an enablement perspective.
We start a little bit late here. There are 2 questions, and folks, if you have to jump off, Keenan, would you be willing to take 5 minutes to have a look at it? Cool, mate. What if after you dive so deep into the problem and you're looking at that root cause, you find out that potentially your medication as a doctor isn't the best fit to solve that root cause. What are you going to do then?
Get out.
Persuade them from buying? You're going to point them
Yes.
elsewhere?
No, you don't persuade them. You say, listen, I don't think we're the best fit for you. So let me give you a recommendation. And you send them to a new doctor. You send them to your buddy John at a competitor. 100,000%.
I love that. Okay, super easy answer on that one. 100% do it. Now, the issue is a salesperson hears that and says, you want me to say no to customers? And that relates to the second question someone left here. Laura said, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a marketer. That's okay, we forgive you. Completely agree with the upfront about whether your product can solve the prospect's problem or not. But salespeople are incentivized to close people. Surely turning them away, despite needing to achieve quota, will add pressure to them that will make them not want to do that.
So here's the deal. To me, this isn't a sales question. This is a character question. It's a character question. So just the other day, one of my kids told me a story about one of their friends. One of their friends was taking a placement test, and they were afraid that if they didn't pass a certain score on this placement test, that they might not be able to keep their major, or they'd have to take a bunch of classes over again in college. And when they were telling me this story, I was like, what'd you say to your friend? And I told them it was stupid. But what their friend did was they cheated. They went on their phone and looked up some of the answers on the test.
Mm-hmm.
Now, basically, that's the exact same thing Laura just said to me. That's a lot of pressure, because if they don't score well on that test, they may have to take those classes over, or they may not be able to stay in their major. So, like, literally what the question I heard was, if I am under a lot of pressure, then I should not do the right thing. This is a no-brainer for me. I got a lot of faults, but doing the fucking right thing is not one of them. I will do the right thing. And so if you can't buy my product or service because it's not best for you, I'm telling you as quickly as possible, I'm apologizing. I'm trying to help you go to the right person. They'll hook you up. And if you don't think down the road that's going to help me, I got another one for you. It is absolutely going to help me. This is a character issue.
If you ignore the fact that you're not the best solution to help them, then they're either going to find out themselves, in which case you wasted a bunch of time trying to sell to them when they weren't going to buy from you ever because there was a better fit solution out.
Yep.
And if it's related to the impact and you try to sell someone who doesn't have a problem and doesn't have a big enough impact, they will just kick it down the road until they say it's no longer a priority. It's not a priority. Other things come up, right?
Yep.
So would you rather keep those deals in your pipeline and waste 6 months potentially of your time trying to sell to someone who was never going to buy from in the first place? Or would you rather kick them out of the pipeline, maybe go find someone else to speak to, or focus on the people who actually do have those problems and doing a better job?
Or worse, you sell it, you get your commission, but it churns. So great, you feel great, you got it. They churned, they're pissed at your company, right? So great. Now, it's a character issue. And I like some of the people saying, it's a straight character. We need more character and values inside of sales. I'm tired of this. My job is to sell at all costs. No, it's not. Your job's to help. If you can't help, move on.
All right. Keenan, that's a great note to end on. Anyone who stayed away past the end of the session here, hope you enjoyed this one. Again, I'm going to share this up on the screen real quick. So if you want to get that speed, or if you're a seller or a sales leader, great place to start. Scan that QR code, go check that out. And if you haven't already, please pick up this damn book. It'll be well worth the read. On Audible, it's all like $15 a month for an Audible. Keenan brings that same energy that you just brought during this entire sesh to that book. Amazing stuff. I'm glad that I rushed it into that interview process a little while ago, all those years back. Thanks for joining me, Keenan.
You're a good interviewer, dog. You're one of the best interviewers I've gone through so far.
You know that I know the answer to a lot of the questions I'm asking as well, right?
It's how you ask the questions, what you built on. You did a really good job. You should be proud of yourself. You did a really good job.
And if that is any incentive to register for any upcoming shows of Sell Better at sellbetterxyz.xyz, then go ahead and do that as well. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. Thank you, Keenan, most of all. And thank you to our partner, Zoom Info. Keep it real.